let us talk about the assessment for the postgraduate studies. I believe this is one of the topics that the postgraduate students are concerned of. It is good to know about the assessment, what are the requirements, what you can do for you to pass the assessment, so that you have an idea what kind of situations that you're going to face, and then get yourself prepared beforehand. For a typical postgraduate study, there are two assessments. There will be thesis proposal and proposal defense. This one normally conducted within the first year of your postgraduate study. And there will be thesis and viva. This one will be conducted at the end of your postgraduate studies. First, let us talk about the thesis proposal and the proposal defense. For this assessment, there will be two main parts. You will need to submit a proposal report, which is known as the thesis proposal, to the examiner for evaluations, stating your plan, how you intend to carry out your investigations for your research. The examiner will review your proposal, giving comments and advice, doing evaluations, whether you are on the right track, whether you have covered all the essential part of the research, whether you know how to conduct a research, and decide whether you're going to pass or fail your proposal for the research study. After submitting the thesis proposal, there will be a presentations, which is known as the proposal defense. The same group of examiner will sit as an audience. You will do the presentations based on what you have proposed. There will be Q&A sections. The examiner will pose questions to you to assess your understanding, to observe your planning, and to assess and decide whether you should proceed with your proposal. Now let us look into details. First, we look at the thesis proposal. The main purpose here is to convince your supervisor and examiner that your topic and your approach are sound. That means during thesis proposal, you will need to clearly define the topics that you are studying, as well as work out the plan. How do you intend to conduct your research study? Your research method should be properly designed, workable, achievable, logical, and rational. In your research proposal, you will need to indicate your plan of action, your theoretical positionings, and the relationship to the past work in your research area. These are the three main things to be incorporated in your research proposal. You will need to demonstrate a satisfactory mastery of the topic, methodology, ownership of the thesis or dissertations. These are the typical content of the thesis proposal, which include the title, objective, literature review, problem statements, methodology, expected outcome, preliminary results, timeline of completions, as well as the reference. These are the typical outline of a thesis proposal. You should have outlined the expected outcome in your thesis proposal, made known to the examiner and the supervisor what kind of data that you are actually collecting, how do you intend to analyze those data, what kind of result that you are expecting, and how do you intend to interpret those results, and etc. This is something which is good to have, demonstrating to the examiners and supervisor that you have everything well planned. Another thing is, it gives you a guideline at the later stage of your research study, what you should do after acquiring the data. Most likely at this stage, when you submit your thesis proposal, you don't have any data in hand. The expected outcome doesn't mean that the expected findings that you acquire from your research study. You don't want yourself to be biased. It is more towards the approach that you use to process the data. as well as how you're going to present those data and what kind of informations or message that may be reflected by the data. You might need to outline the possible outcome, whether the performance is acceptable or not acceptable. There should be clear-cut criteria to evaluate those. If you are conducting feasibility study, there will be certain requirements that you need to outline, and then whichever data that you acquire, you will need to process as per result, and then compare against those criteria for you to know that whether the product or system that you are developing is feasible. Which at this stage, you don't have any data, you do not really know whether those systems are feasible or not, but at least you know that how can you determine whether it is feasible or not. That is the meaning of the expected outcome. Although it is good to have, I shall strongly encourage you to have those in your thesis proposal. Whether you have the preliminary result of finding, this is optional. This normally happens when you are ahead of the normal schedules of the research progress, which you have already started your investigation program before the proposal. The timeline for completions, it will be referring to your plan as presented in the schedule form, which is the Gantt chart. You should have those in your proposal, not only for the sake of showing to the examiner. You should also indicate your current positions, because theoretically you have developed your Gantt chart from the first day of your research study. You may use your initial plan as the baseline as compared to your current progress to see whether you are on the track or you are actually behind. There's one more thing that I need to mention, which is the methodology part. It should be clearly outlined how you intend to carry out your research, what kind of materials that you're going to use, what kind of testing that you're going to have, whether they are available in your institutions. If it is not available, how are you going to make sure you have those ready? Are you going to do it in the other institutions, or are you going to outsource those tasks for some professional services? And another important part of it, it will be how you're going to design your research. This including design the parameters to be investigated, propose the details and dimensions for your specimens, make known to the examiners and supervisor how many specimens will be tested, how they complement each other, what kind of information that you can acquire from the specimens that you have designed in order to answer your research questions. You need to clearly indicate the number of specimens for the examiners and supervisor to have an idea the scale of your research project, and based on their experience, they could advise you whether you are doing too much or too little. This is some common mistakes of the postgraduate students. They know they need to present the specifications and details of the materials and the methods, but they forgot to outline how they're going to carry out the research, particularly in terms of the specimen design, parameters that they intend to study, and how the entire research is intact, answering to the research questions or the objective of the research. For you to produce this thesis proposal, you need to make sure your proposal are clear, concise, effective, readable, and without redundancy. Your idea needs to be novel, workable, and worth doing. And you need to make sure it is thorough, offering enough details to comprehend and to replicate. And you need to demonstrate rigorous planning through well-design of your research framework. Don't underestimate this thesis proposal. In order to produce a good thesis proposal, much effort will be required on the planning part. You will need to imagine yourself, simulate yourself going through every single stage of the research, identify all the relevant tasks and activities to be carried out, and also ensure that your entire research design is without redundancy. Every single part of your research plays significant role, no redundant move, and they should complement each other. In the process of producing this thesis proposal, you will require close monitoring and supervision by your supervisor. Spend some time to discuss with your supervisor. Get your supervisors to comment, point out your limitations so that you can improve from there. By the time everything is written in your thesis proposal, it should be quite optimized. It is no longer a simple record of planning. In fact, you can base on your thesis proposal to proceed with your research study without much concern. Whichever is being written in the research proposal, it should be valid by itself as a complete research. Of course, as the time goes by, there could be minor change in terms of the directions of the investigations, or you encounter certain problem which cannot be resolved, or your result indicate the other workable directions. Then you might need to do some fine-tuning from your thesis proposal. But the idea here is the thesis proposal, it is not just merely for the assessment of the examiners and supervisor. After the proposal defense, it will act as the guide for you for the following research process. Next, we talk about the proposal defense, which depending on the degree that you are taking, as well as depending the mode of your study, whether full-time or part-time, the proposal defense are typically conducted within the period as indicated by months. For example, for a typical master degree, full-time students, most likely you're going to have your proposal defense between the 4th to 6th month of your postgraduate study. If you are talking about the PhD, it is between 6 to 12 months. That means the master degree full-time, the proposal defense will be done in the first semester, where one semester is about 6 months, and for the PhD study, it is in the second semester, somewhere between 6 months to 12 months. There are conditions that you can extend the period, or probably you need to redo the second time proposal defense. These are the limits. Of course, this is subjected to the policy of different universities. The one here is an example to you. The point here is you should check with your postgraduate school for the relevant policies. Normally, the proposal defense will be done within 20 minutes, and then there will be Q&A sections. Most likely, you're going to have 3 examiners. One of the examiners will be the chair to the examiner panels, and all 3 examiners shall not be your supervisor or co-supervisors. It is between you and the examiners. You do the presentations to the examiners and get yourself ready to answer the questions posed by the examiners. These are the typical outline of the presentation slides, which include the cover page, background of study, literature review, define the problem of the research, objective, methodology, and probably you put some expected results to demonstrate you have everything well planned for your research investigations. These are some tips for you for the proposal defense. Not just summarizing or duplicating your thesis proposal. Normally, the examiners are looking for something more other than that, because by the time they have attended your proposal defense, they should have already gone through your thesis proposal. Most likely, they have their questions ready. You should use your proposal defense to complement the limitations of writing in the proposal. Try to design your proposal defense in the way that you help the examiner to better understand your proposal. Don't just read the slides. You will need to speak slowly, smoothly, clearly, and in consistent rhythm. You need to make sure the message is effectively delivered. Plan the flow, construct the comprehensions of the audience gradually, and avoid overflow of informations. The meaning of overflow of information is you discharge too many information at a time, which the audience cannot keep up or cannot really recall what you have said. That means the information is too much. You need to be careful with this. Normally, each slide will have one theme, not more than 6 bullet points. It is so that to ensure the audience can closely follow your pace. You need to demonstrate mastery and well-preparedness of the topic. And when you prepare the slides, focus more on the simplicity, contrast, consistency, and not distracting. Try not to use too many colors, text, animations, sounds, and use appropriate font size. In fact, we have the presentation part discussed quite in detail in the previous chapter. For more information, you may refer to the previous chapter.